one fascinating thing about the web and in creating your own persona, whether it's a corporate persona or a personal identity on the web, is you start as a blank slate. No one knows who you are. When Mike first started doing the social media and started Twittering, no one who read his initial tweets thought he was a 250-pound tub of goo. No one knew. He was simply the czar. He got to create that image, the persona that he has now, just out of whole cloth. He created what he wanted. And you get to do exactly the same thing. And when you first start with any of the social media tools, they present you with a blank slate. And I'm using Twitter as an example because a lot of people in here have heard about Twitter, and as soon as Oprah started using Twitter a couple weeks ago, it became hugely popular. And Twitter gives you a blank slate. You get to create your name, and the name is an important element. And is it going to be your name? And odds are, if you have a common name, if you're Bob Jones, that name is gone. So you've got to come up with a name that says something about you or something about your business. Mike's lucky he was the tech czar, and that's his tag, and that's his label. He's the only tech czar I know, so he is simply the czar. Now, I'm online as John Heaney. Unfortunately, there was no other John Heaney who jumped on and grabbed that before me. But for a lot of people that we deal with, their name's gone. So you've got to come up, is it your first initial last name? Is it your company name and your first name? You come up with something. The important thing is that you use that tag, that label, across all the platforms. You can't be a different person on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on MySpace, because no one will know who you are. And so there's two components. There's the verbal, the written element, which is your name and your tag and your description. And then there's the visual element. And the visuals part, when you come on to Twitter, you get this blank page, a blue background, and this icon that's a little O, an underscore, and a capital O. And you've got to create your own image, your own identity, because as soon as I receive a tweet from someone whose icon is this, I know they're not serious. I don't pay attention to them. I unfollow them. They're not serious about being in this medium. Now, this is what the czar's page looks like. Now, some of you might understand why I'm helping him redo his brand identity. There are some elements here I like, and there's a couple elements that I think aren't consistent with the image of a czar. One thing we've done is incorporate color. And look, his logo, which he had designed a couple of years ago, incorporates green and a brilliant yellow. And so we incorporated his colors. And this is something I think a lot of you need to do as well. Look at what is your personal palette going to be? What colors are you going to use consistently, repeatedly? And it's not just like my color happens to be orange. And you know what? I have the hex code of my color is FF6600. I know the Pantone number of my color. I know I don't use just kind of orange. I use orange. I use a color. I have a special blue, and I have a special hex code and RGB code. I use these same colors all the time in every medium, no matter what, because color, those visual cues are important. When I see this combination of green and gold, it's Mike. And I know that. There are logos that you will see online and avatars that you see online where that color is what you connect with that individual. And so you just can't use what they give you. You got to think through what you want to be. Now, you will see on Twitter, and you will see in a variety of other social media platforms, some people's avatars are simply their corporate logo. I doubt there's anyone in here who is big enough and grand enough that the corporate logo is going to be the sole look. And as Matt said at lunch today, that's a tough one to work with because Home Depot's got to have hundreds, perhaps thousands, of employees that they would want to be on Twitter. They can't all share this. So to have that as the company avatar really doesn't work that well. Now the other option that you see a lot is simply a face shot. And again, this is one of the things, if you're trying to create simply a social brand, you and your friends, I can see where you might just want to go with a face shot. However, if you're using this as a component of business, I don't think this is really effective. And the reason is, the more you're on these social media platforms, and especially Twitter, I've got a couple thousand people following me, and I'm following a couple thousand. That stream of tweets is just rolling all day. Faces just blend. Colors, if I see the Texars logo, Rock My Souls has a great avatar. When I see that color and that identity pop, I notice. A face it's another face, and it's very difficult to brand a face. Now here's something else you got to be careful of. If you use your personal identity, tighten it up. It's not just your face from here, it's your face here. Because this is what happens to a photo at 40 pixels. I have and this happens to be a local person, and I can't recall who she is, but it's a horrible avatar. I have absolutely no idea what she looks like, Now there's a reason that a lot of people either, also integrate facial shots. It's when you actually come to meetings like this, people say, aha, I know who you are. I've seen you. I've seen you for months, and now I see from the neck down. That's fascinating. Now, a lot of people also have personal avatars. And look, Mike's, we don't use the whole Texar logo because we used it at first and it didn't work. It was too small. It got lost. And look, he's known as the Czar. Cutting that logo in half, using the color, and he's just the Czar. That works. Paul, with the yoga shoe company, the Chinese symbol for foot, and it's a teal blue. It's a very specific blue, and that works. And it's a very identifiable. And Rohit, and it's an Indian last name. He's actually a pretty famous author and blogger. Has this cartoonish avatar. I'm not a real big fan of it, but it works for him. It's readily identifiable, and that's what you want. What I think works the best is a hybrid. If you're on the social media platforms for business, I think the hybrid works great. You get a sense of who the person is, and if you meet them, and look, there have been meetings in Cleveland called tweet-ups, where you just, hey, everyone in Cleveland who Twitters, we're going to meet at this bar this night at 7 o'clock, and 80, 90 people will show up, and I'll know who Chad Engel is because I've seen half his face. I can kind of put together the other half of that face. But if it's just an avatar, I don't know who I'm looking at. And there have been a number of people here just at the conference today where I've seen their face for months on Twitter. And so now I can go up and say, I've been following your stuff, I love what you write. And there's a connection. And my company is Orange Envelopes, I use that. And the brilliant orange color, a white background, that contrast stands out. They've taken a company who has their own Twitter presence, and everyone who Twitters with them gets a sepia-toned photo, but Fuel Labs is on the side. So now it's not necessarily, it's a combination of a personal brand and a corporate brand. And I think if you're going to be active in social media as a part of your business, that this hybrid is a really effective way to create a personal and a brand identity online. And if you can't do it yourself, work with a designer. I mean, this is your presence online, possibly for years, and it needs to be impactful, it needs to be distinctive, it needs to be memorable, and it needs to be authentic to who you are.